This is for the nerds, this is for the brainiacs, this what we deserve. Go ahead and play it back, you ain't gonna touch me, you not gonna do nothing, you are not above me, I bet you wish you was me, I know it, I know.
What is poppin', everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Only Friends podcast. Well, you know, I'm here with my only friends. And this piece of shit over here that's like mocking me or something with my hand moving. He's mad he ain't got the vibes of it. But, you know, my number one's in the building. He's you know, he feels better. He's like dancing and shit. What's poppin', man?
We got our own Stephen A. Smith in the building.
Yo, relax, man.
I will say I do not want to be, what's the name?
Skip Bayless?
Yeah, Skip Bayless. The angry white guy.
You have to be him by default.
He's one obnoxious human being, man.
I mean, Stephen A. Smith isn't too far from that as well.
Nah, he's a Steelers fan. I'm down with Stephen A.
I mean, they're geniuses. They get paid so much money to yell at each other about stuff they don't really care about.
Well, so they're not even on the same show anymore. Yeah. Now it's Stephen A. and some other angry white guy, and on the other show is Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp.
An angry black guy.
Fun. When you have a formula, you stick to it, right? Just don't change what works.
They really just branched out to make all the money.
Yep.
It's wild.
It's fucking insane what they did.
Fun fact about Shannon Sharp, when I was in lower school, I had a Shannon Sharp jersey because my dad was a Ravens fan. I wore this jersey the entire winter break.
Your dad was a Ravens fan and owned a Steeler bar?
His dad's a Raven. Well, you know, listen.
He knows what works. He's a smart guy.
He's a Ravens fan, but he also likes money.
Wow. I mean,
I wore this jersey for
your pride away for that.
whole weeks during winter break. Because like it was cold enough in Florida where like you didn't really sweat. You were just kind of cold sweat.
Keep telling yourself that, fucking pig pen.
Listen, man, I respect the decisions I made when I was younger, and I would not do them again.
Fucking stink lines coming up over his head. He's like, I'm not even sweating.
No, like I showered, but like I just kept wearing the same shirt. I don't know.
Burke, how much money would you have to make off your business to turn it into a Ravens bar?
Right now, not much.
To turn it into a Ravens bar. Turn the Salt for White podcast into a Ravens bar.
Yeah, it's end of year.
Let's say a separate business.
Taxes hit kind of hard this year.
Man,
you know,
like
Bitcoin's down.
$35.
Yeah, not much really. Really, any positive ROI, I think at this point.
I'm pretty sure you would live under a bridge before you opened up a Ravens bar.
I think you might be right. Pride goeth before the fall.
That's right.
So they say. Speaking of a little extra cash, if you have any in your pocket and you're looking for a great way to spend it, I've got the perfect idea for you. This week's title sponsor, DraftKings, is offering an awesome deal for new customers. Sign up using promo code FRIENDSPOD, deposit at least $25 into your account, and you'll receive $50 in credits. Easy as that. The DraftKings Casino is located in Connecticut, Michigan, Jersey, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. Check it out with this bonus code if that's your thing. Otherwise, download and play DraftKings Fantasy Sports, especially as the NFL playoffs are around the corner, which may include the Pittsburgh Steelers. Type hashtag sponsor in the chat and head to DraftKings app. Sign up using promo code FRIENDSPOD. Notice how I just kept going on with the read so nobody could push back on the Steelers winning out.
Yeah, well, do you understand how unlikely it is, right?
I understand.
Okay, like
I know how math works.
I'm saying if they win out, like they still need a ton of help.
Not a ton.
Do you guys think DraftKings ever gets in poker?
Yeah,
like online poker.
They already have a platform built out. They're like everybody else. They're fucking waiting to launch.
That's dope.
I mean, they're like beta testing and stuff like that. But yeah, they're for sure on the outside looking in.
That's awesome.
They're poker adjacent right now.
Well.
The Steelers just need the Jets to lose twice.
Not going to happen.
They need the Ravens to lose 3 times of the remaining 4. Or is there only 3 games left?
Let's see.
There's 3 games left.
They need to win out, and then they need only Chargers lose. Okay, so it says if the other one scenario is only Chargers lose out, Chargers have to lose out. Jets have to lose 2 of 3. New England has to lose 2 of 3. Jacksonville has to lose 1 of 3, or Tennessee has to lose 2 of 3. And then only Dolphins lose out. It's Miami has to lose out. New England has to lose 2 of 3. Jets have to lose 2 of 3. Jacksonville has to lose 1 of 3, or Tennessee has to lose 1 of 3.
Wow.
So it's a lot.
So they need one team to lose out, plus a myriad of other playoff contenders to
lose 2 of 3,
Right.
and then also someone to lose either 1 of 3 or 2 of 3.
Well, I'm a believer.
You're saying
let you
there's a
go,
chance. All I'm
So you're
hearing is that
saying there's a
the
chance.
dreams are still alive.
I think the
for
hardest
now.
thing
The
for them
Steelers need a lot. It says the Steelers need a lot to work in their favor to overcome the 0.3% chance they currently have of making the postseason.
We've seen
All I'm hearing
one-outers
is-
before.
all I'm hearing is that
Oh,
there's a
boy.
chance.
It
There is a
sounds as
chance.
likely as football's coming home for English soccer
Mm.
fans.
You guys were only 0.3%. I mean, I'd like to think in that tie that we played against you guys that you were a far superior team, and we're right there knocking on the door, baby.
Oh, you guys!
No, we
like,
crushed
I've
them.
said this. If America invested the resources, you could easily be top 4.
I saw a tweet about this,
In my
by the way.
opinion.
Put that mic in your mouth like it's
Okay, there we go.
You have
know,
to
a
feel
f-
attacked by it.
yeah. You
Okay.
want to see it as like a freshly groomed penis.
What the hell?
Why have you guys just? There's a lot of tension in this room, right? It just always leads to.
Look, man. It's,
I mean,
again, it's the end of the year.
never
Taxes hit hard.
Listen, the sexual
Me and
tension
Lamanna
in this
are no
room is
part of this.
crazy.
Yeah. Carter
Yeah.
and I just stay out of it.
That's
It's just
true. That is
Berkey.
true.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
stopped having sex
It's
years
essentially
ago.
just Berkey and then when Melissa's here. It's nobody else.
Bro, Landon's been rock hard for like 8 months.
Yeah, but he doesn't like.
What are you
express
talking
it.
about? This kid does
Yes, he
cock
does.
push-ups in between pre-production and getting on the air.
Just
Like,
do
on
push-ups,
air.
man.
He does express it. He definitely does.
Yeah, I mean, he's just
The frustration is dying.
he's just over there talking about his fucking glow up, and all he's seeing are big titty anime girls in the distance.
I really.
You know
hope
what?
my
You know what?
parents
You know
didn't
what?
tune into
Okay,
this one.
okay. You know what I realize I don't like sometimes is that when someone else speaks for your behalf, you cannot stop them.
That's true. You know what I really enjoy about this new setup we have too is there's a light directly between Landon and I, so I don't have to look him in the face whenever I make fun of him.
Yeah, I have to look
is-
at this light.
Which is rather fantastic. I did see a tweet though regarding soccer that said, or sorry, it was a TikTok, and it was this guy going on saying, if America prioritized soccer the way they do other sports, this would be the, what is it, eight players on the pitch?
11.
11. Okay,
God,
so it was
Matt.
like here's the starting 11, and it went through like pulling athletes from all the other sports.
I
It
saw
was
this. It was
fucking insane.
It
Like,
was
who's
great.
gonna argue with this? They're like
Yeah.
LeBron James running midfield. It's just
Yeah.
like, yeah, okay. I mean, this guy's probably pretty fucking good at anything he does.
Wow, do we just like have them start playing soccer as well as their other sports?
I wish you guys did it. It'd be so cool.
Tyreek
'Cause
Hill.
I could. My dad was American, so I'd actually have a team that wouldn't disappoint me,
Sure.
like the English team does every year. So I refuse to follow England.
What does the pay grade look like in MLS? Or
Not
is
good.
MLS just in America?
Well,
it's just in
Okay, what's it look like rest of world? Because I know that there's like
Dude.
Huge.
well, there's the outliers with was it Neymar that got the
Ronaldo.
Okay.
Even
Yeah.
even the mid tier guys are getting paid.
Yeah, I mean,
Like-
if you're playing for like Man City, I would say most of Man City's starting 11 are on 6 figures a week, with their top players. Like, I think Aguero was getting paid like £500,000 a week at one point.
Okay, how many weeks are the season?
That's 52 weeks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And that's before any like sponsorship deals or anything like that.
Yeah,
That's just his
they're
salary.
they make so much money. They make like
Okay, so you're talking like an average salary of like call it 8 million.
Yeah, and then now Ronaldo's just been offered, what was it, 200 million to go and play? For
Yeah,
this,
I saw
like,
that.
Division.
I'm just trying to
1.
see how it compares to other sports within America. So it sounds close to like base.
I think it honestly blows out all of them.
No way.
Oh, yeah, it does.
It does.
Yeah, it does.
It does because like there's just more like the bottom is getting paid more.
No, that can't be true.
No, it does.
You're talking about Man City. Man City's not the bottom. Man City's like one of the top. It's like the Yankees.
Man City is a very
Right, that's
very
not the
sick
Pirates.
team.
No,
yeah.
no, they're not the Pirates,
Right,
but
like,
they're definitely.
What is a team that like wins its way up into the?
Let's look at
like
Sevilla.
Bournemouth.
What are the divisions? Or like A,
dude,
B?
we're talking just about salary. Like Kevin De Bruyne's getting paid £400,000 a week, and that's before winning any titles, before any endorsement deals, before any sponsorships or affiliates. Or
Right, but like
That's-
12,
All right, so how about this?
but
so
12 million a year is not
pounds. That's $15 million.
No, I thought the pound slipped. Or no, that's
It's-
a euro.
it's even.
Yeah, my bad.
Nice try, nice try.
quick question.
Pound so fine.
Sevilla, where are they ranked in like?
That's La Liga, right? That's the Spanish
Yeah.
division. Yeah, that's
Sevilla.
so like That's mid-tier. That's
Mid-tier, okay. So
that's like playing for the Chicago Bulls at the moment. Like you just
their average salary is $2.4 million.
Okay, so man, that's probably pretty comparable to baseball.
Okay, but also the average cost of living in Spain is like
Well,
what?
no,
30%
that's not
of
the point I'm
this?
trying to make. The point I'm trying to make is like why the United States does not prioritize soccer and probably won't anytime in the near future because
Less
the money,
money.
the money is in the other sports. So in order to get a LeBron James to interested in soccer at
it's very
age 10
true.
instead
That's
of
not
basketball,
true. That is not true.
what do you mean?
There's
I don't
no
think-
way there's
I don't
more
think
money
so.
in basketball than football, dude. Than soccer.
I'm 100% agreeing with him here. Like,
well, I'm not necessarily saying in the United States there is
Well,
for sure.
yeah,
Compare, like,
Yeah, of
why
course,
in
in
the
the
U-
United States. But if you're
That's the point I'm
comparing
trying
to
to
like
make.
the Premier League or
but the United States wouldn't be in the Premier League.
It's about U.S. versus rest of world, right? Because
Right.
now the best players in the world will have to travel, leave the U.S., and
Yeah.
we in the U.S. prioritize football, baseball from like a fame celebrity status
Right,
more
right.
than like soccer.
but like the reason why is that? Why is that? I think-
Because football and baseball are American traditions. That's just how
Yeah, A,
things
they're
are.
local. B, television rights.
I
That's,
have- I
that's
have
where
a-
all the money comes
I have
from.
a real fucking big problem with this. Soccer was my love. I was really good at the sport.
Well,
And,
go
like,
overseas, get
There-
rich.
There was no like development like here.
When you say really good, are we talking really good?
I mean,
You can't say there's no development here, man. College soccer in the States is actually pretty. I
Yeah,
don't know how
no,
it compares to the rest of the world, but like it's definitely competitive.
no, it's getting there. Like soccer's getting good in the States, but back in where I'm from, when I was growing up, it just wasn't like
I agree.
there wasn't a lot.
I think after this World Cup and the amount of love that you guys got, especially with like social media content now, TikTok, Instagram, and whatnot, it wouldn't surprise me if over, maybe not in like the next 5 years, but the 10-year-olds of today that watch that, it wouldn't surprise me if there's just like a lot of American kids now that are just like, you know what, I want to play soccer, and just see you guys crush in 15 years from now.
The thing is, like, honestly, when it comes to sports and growing up as like a kid in the US, no one really only strictly plays soccer. It's always football, basketball, soccer, and you always
Right.
grow up with
I
those
don't
things.
even think it's necessarily that. I think that's a good point to make, but I think the bigger point is the best athletes that we see worldwide tend to come out of, and maybe I'm overgeneralizing because I have so many like anecdotal thoughts in my head of this being true, but they tend to come out of lower economic situations.
Yeah.
And certain sports just don't lend themselves to that. It's not that soccer doesn't. Of course it does. It's the easiest sport to construct, right? It's just two nets and a ball.
Not even nets. You can just use shoes.
Right.
as goals.
But the point I'm trying to make is more cultural, right? Like there are other sports that are really cheap to construct, such as basketball and football. And culturally, they are so much more Americanized, right? So
Right.
those impoverished kids who are trying to get out of whatever situation they're in, they see that as a meal ticket. And they see it as something to cash out, where they see soccer as not that. And it's a really tough sell.
I could definitely see soccer being like the privileged white suburban kid sport in the US.
It always
That's-
has
that's
been.
what it's
It
been.
always
Like,
has been.
in the UK, we'd literally, after school, no shoes on, go and play in the rain, in the mud, in the middle of the streets. It's the same in Asia. It's the same in Africa. It's
Yeah.
the same in like all of Europe, where it's more of a working class sport. and
It's funny that
accessible to everyone, and like football is seen as the ticket out of poverty.
It's
Yeah,
so
it's-
weird because
it's-
we all come from these places, kind of.
Well, no, it's funny that it flips the other way in the United States.
Yeah.
Soccer's very posh. Everything's
Right.
travel league. You need a lot of money to play. It's similar to hockey
Yeah.
in that regard. Basketball is actually the
basketball is
yeah.
like the ticket.
yeah, it's the low economic sport that you'll see in any impoverished area.
Right.
The irony though is rest of world isn't like that. Basketball tends to be a little bit more affluent if you're talking about Europe or Asia or whatever.
Right, and that's why like it's so rare to get like EuroLeague superstars that then move to the US to play ball, like Doncic, Giannis, or like
Less rare now, but yes.
right
Yeah.
prior to basketball kind of being what it is, and like that's why
But
during
that
the
makes
Olympics,
sense.
like
But that makes sense, right? Because their barrier of entry is so much higher.
yeah,
They have to come overseas. Same reason why soccer translating into the Premier League,
yeah, I agree.
you're just not going to get the cream of the crop athletes because there's already the barrier of entry monetarily speaking.
That's
Yeah,
why we
for
always
sure.
stomp during the Olympics for basketball.
Right.
It's just unbeatable.
Yeah.
Has anybody here seen Welcome to Wrexham? It's a
Never heard of it.
documentary on
Right.
Ryan Reynolds opening or buying a club, I think, somewhere in Europe.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah, I still haven't watched it, but I've seen him post a lot about it, and it looks really interesting.
Ryan Reynolds owns a soccer team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love this dude, man.
And it's called Wrexham, and it's like the middle of nowhere, UK.
There's a guy from
Like-
Sunny in Philadelphia who went in on it with him. I can't remember his
Is
name.
it Charlie Day or
It's Ryan Reynolds and Rob
McElhenney?
Yeah.
McElhenney?
You know that there was a season where
Amazing.
where Rob during Always Sunny in Philadelphia was bored and just decided to get fat and play his character fat.
Yeah.
He just said like it's getting stale. Like he's shredded. He
Yeah,
might
he
even,
is.
he may have even like cycled a few times. I can't remember.
Respect.
But like there was just a point where he was just like, I'm gonna play my character fat this year. Like it just seems like he should be fat for a season, and he put on like 30 pounds of just like excess weight.
He's just bored. He's like, you know what? Let's spice it up. I want to be fat now.
Where's Haralabob's?
Spain.
Spain.
Okay, and that's obviously a different league. Yeah.
That's still not La Liga, but from as far as I know, he's gone from like the lowest tier league
Yeah.
And they're
to
building.
like now I want to say second.
I love
division.
that about European sports. The way that they do the tier system, and like you
Relegation.
just basically win your way in. It's
Right.
so economically. Well, maybe not. Maybe I don't know the structuring of it enough to know like how much cash matters.
Well, cash plays a huge part. I think that's what's happened in soccer recently. You got PSG. You have Man City, who 10 years ago couldn't compete, and now they are the best team in the world.
Right.
They're just a bunch of oil money.
But it's kind of so it's a byproduct of money coming in, not a byproduct of.
yeah. They just like got
I
a
was
bunch
thinking-
of oil money and bought all the best players.
I
in
see.
the
I
world.
see. I was thinking they like won their way into
No,
Premier
no,
League
no,
and then
no.
opportunities. So it's not as much of a meritocracy as it may appear from the outside.
Sure. Yeah, no, it's not.
I still like the structure.
Yeah, the promotion relegation is sick.
Yeah, it is. It's like the top two teams usually move up, and the bottom two teams.
Honestly, like
drop
baseball
off.
would stand to benefit the most from that sort of structure because we have so many guys humping careers in the minor leagues
Yeah.
where they're being paid fuck all. And I mean, I don't think people understand the disparity that exists at the baseball level when you're talking about like the base salary for a rookie in the MLB is either like 500 or 750K.
Something like that.
And the base salary for a veteran, I think, is like double that. So like somewhere between $1 million and 1.5. The average triple A salary.
You're making like 30K a year.
Yeah, it's fucking
Yeah.
dust. And if
That's
you're in
insane.
single A, you're getting paid like hundreds of
Like,
dollars per game.
You can't live off of like playing in the minors.
No, like being in the
Yeah.
minors now is like comparable to back in Babe Ruth's day where it's like that's your part-time job and you're working like the ranch
Right.
on the side.
Yeah.
So imagine like instead of A ball, B ball, A, double A, triple A pros, that actually just became their own separate leagues. It is structured that way, I
Kind of.
guess, but the ownership is still coming from the MLB, right? So whether you're in triple A, double A, single A, you're still affiliated with the team that drafted you and you're just in the system, right? Imagine if that split or just cut ties.
Right.
And instead now we had a bunch of little cities across America that had pro teams that were trying to win their way into the MLB. Fuck, get the Pirates the fuck out. They don't want to spend. They don't want to spend. Get them the fuck. They're gonna lose their way down to double A.
I don't like that.
I like this.
Here's a fun
Why?
fact.
It would help them.
Did you know
it would
that-
force them to
It's forcing them to
spend?
spend money because they are a city and they want team.
If you play one, just one game in the major leagues, you get healthcare for life.
For life?
For life.
no
Bro,
way.
I will
That's
say
part of-
baseball.
Yeah.
Baseball,
Like
man.
literally, they bring you up for like some emergency. Sometimes they bring up like a double A catcher who's like never gonna make the big leagues, but you know the two guys on the team got hurt and they're in that city or something. They just need to bring him over.
Yeah.
And then the guy just plays like he gets in the game for like an inning, and then now he has.
I mean, to be fair,
It's
like
amazing.
this is no skin off the back of the clubs. We're
course
talking
it's
about
not.
like 5K
Of
per
course
player per year.
Of course, it's not.
But yeah, no, I will say that the MLB, it strikes me as so strange because I feel like it's not ownership friendly the way it's set up. But the owners are the ones who balk at the idea of a salary cap. They don't want it.
Right.
They want it structured the way it is. They want to keep bolstering these contracts. I mean, the baseball contracts are getting out of fucking hand, man.
Wait, they don't want salary caps?
No.
Wait.
So
No, the players don't want salary caps.
The players also don't want salary caps, but I'm pretty certain that
No, I think the owners want salary caps.
I don't I could be wrong, but
You can't tell me the old white guy doesn't want a salary cap now.
Or maybe maybe the small market teams don't want the smaller market ones don't want it because it's not going to affect them, but the bigger ones.
I'm
I don't
sure
know.
the teams that are incentivized to have no salary cap don't
Doesn't
want
make
what do you
one.
mean the
sense.
small market teams would definitely want
The
it?
small market teams would want one. Like
Oh, yeah.
Pittsburgh
Right,
want
right.
salary
Yes,
caps. That's
yes.
how you
Yeah,
get
yeah,
players.
Right, but if you look at the league, it's like an even distribution of small and big market teams.
Yeah.
Like the Pirates aren't the median. They're the bottom
Right.
the bottom 1% or the bottom
They're
5%,
cringe.
whatever. So it's like there's you start to look at like the median teams, and they're hardly massive markets like Miami, New York, LA, right? That just takes up the upper third. You're talking about like I guess if I were to guess, the middle would be somewhere around St. Louis.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
St. Louis even spends money, honestly.
That's what I mean. So it's like they're quote unquote a major market by all accounts. So I'm pretty certain that the ownership has also been happy to forego the cap. I think this came to be when they negotiated the luxury tax.
Yeah,
but I
maybe.
could be wrong.
I would think it's like the teams like the Yankees, the Mets, like the Dodgers, their owners would be fighting us because they just get to get all the good players.
Yo, the Mets are spending some money.
The Mets spent $315 million on Carlos Correa over 12 years.
They got
They spent
Verlander, too.
$600 million on free agency.
Yo,
this
dude,
year.
you know what happened? So Carlos Correa failed his physical, or something happened with his
With the
physical,
Giants,
with
yeah.
the Giants, and fucking Steve Cohen came right in immediately and swooped him up for 12 years. And I think for like $35 million less.
The Pirates won't spend $600 million on the entire team in the next 6 years.
I'll take the over on 6 years.
Wow.
I'll take the over on 6 years.
That's what I said. They won't spend it. They won't.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I
Yeah.
don't think they'll average $100 million a
That's
year.
what I said. Yeah.
Not even close.
How do they get more money? Why do you-
They're one of the most profitable teams in baseball.
Wait, hold on. So they just don't want to spend money?
Correct.
That's bullshit.
Their margins are too good.
That's fucking absolute dog shit.
Well, that's why this idea of, instead of having a minor league system, having multiple leagues where you're a threat to lose your way out of the fucking league would force them to spend.
I fucking love this because I didn't know that. And
Yeah, imagine
that's annoying.
What happens is rather than there being more parity at the top, which obviously we'd love to see, but you're just not going to see it at the baseball level anytime soon.
Whoa. What's parity?
Jesus Christ, Conrad.
It's just the way that things shape out.
It means a joke.
Gotcha. Okay, go on.
I'm kidding.
Regarding sports.
So everybody would desire for there to be more parity in baseball as a whole, but they're just not going to be. First of all, they play so many games that the variance kind of works its way out. But secondly, there's a massive disparity in spend.
Mm-hmm.
So those top spending teams are just always going to overperform by comparison. But if you introduce this European league system, like Henry was talking about with soccer, what ends up happening is you have a ton of parity at the bottom, right? And there's so much churn now that takes place that the draft has higher importance all of a sudden, because it might be the difference between you being in the MLB versus the fucking B league.
Yeah.
And secondarily, now how you spend specifically in free agency isn't just about being a playoff contender any longer, right?
Yeah.
It's about keeping your goddamn job.
Yeah.
And you just can't get by being the bottom 3 spending team.
I'm so annoyed that Pittsburgh have the biggest margins and don't spend any goddamn money on the players. They don't even retain the players that they grow.
And not only that, but like the stadium their park is one of the most beautiful parks in all of baseball, and it's fucking empty 5 days a week. Like the weekend stuff where they do fan giveaway stuff, those games do well, and if someone big is in town, they do well.
Fireworks night.
Yeah,
People
fireworks night.
love fireworks in Pittsburgh. They
were
do. It's like the stadium is just empty for like day after day after day. Fireworks night packed. Everyone's loving it.
It's a reason to get out into the city.
To avoid that problem, by the way, there are teams in the UK that the fans have voting rights when it comes.
I've heard of this.
Yeah, when it comes to like how the budgets are spent, like there's
that'd be so amazing.
full transparency on like the spreadsheets and everything.
Yeah.
And the fans are like, okay, well, our defense is now shit. We need to invest resources into, our young academy upcoming players.
This is
and whatnot.
fucking wild.
It's great. Like, imagine if that happened in America.
Imagine trusting Yinzers making those decisions. Get this fucking bum off of third base. would be out.
that'd be great.
If you gave Yinzers voting rights on how to man, first of all, they would do a better job than Bob Nutting. Let's just let's call a spade a spade. But like they would be out in droves, fist fighting in the streets as to who's going to start game 1 of the season, everything else. I think the Packers are.
They are publicly owned company, so you can buy. Yeah, you can buy.
You can invest in them, but you can't decide who's going to be the head coach.
Yeah, you don't get to decide who's playing third base this week.
Right.
Or,
Yeah.
Wide receiver.
It's kind of an interesting idea, though.
Yeah.
I would love
power to the people.
I would love to be a part of a MLB DAO. I mean, we could see this happening with crypto, right?
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
The MLB DAO. Let's buy the fucking Pirates, baby.
You get a Pirates NFT. You just join the DAO, and then you get to make decisions.
I just want to be part of the Discord. That's all I want to be part of.
I mean, honestly, though, do we ever think that anything along these lines, call it the relegation system, will ever be put into the MLB? Because I think absolutely not.
No,
it's so tough to change.
It's so hard to change old white rich guys because the
They're
system
rich,
caters to them as is. But listen, I know
Same problem in the NFL.
I appreciate you saying old white rich guys so I don't get canceled. You kind of covered me.
I got you, homie.
Thank you, number one.
I mean,
That's what it's all about. We cover all the bases here.
Facts are facts. You left me hanging when I was talking about impoverished areas, but whatever. It's fine.
We got to make do.
It's fine. That's why I'm the number one. I know Mark Cuban's listening, and I know my man is a Yinzer at heart. He's born and raised. He wants the Pirates. I know he wants the Pirates. And I know he's heavy. He's balls deep in crypto. So
he's down bad.
He is at the moment. We all are.
Too many billions to be down bad. But imagine Mark Cuban leads a public DAO to take over the Pirates that he only opens to Yinzers.
That'd be amazing.
So first round, only Yinzers. You must prove you have to. You know what you have to do. You have to demonstrate the terrible towel that you were birthed in.
Exactly.
We're just going
There'll be a quiz on Pittsburgh Ease.
Yeah.
We're just going to make a show out of the Discord that comes.
Oh my God, Yinzer Discord. Yinzer Discord controlling managerial decisions for the Pittsburgh. You would never see anybody fucking bunt again. That's for sure.
Sounds like a bunch of jagoffs.
Oh, so many
jagoffs.
Jagoffs in there making decisions.
I was saying to you last trip that I would love to go back to your hometown with you so that I get like the real authentic American
I want
that would be fun.
You have no idea. I want this for anybody
we
who's
should vlog the entire thing.
Anybody who's like close to me in my life, I want nothing more than to take them to Pittsburgh for a week.
Yeah.
Like I think
I'm
it's
down.
I think it's
I'm
genuinely
down.
like why I don't get into a serious relationship, because I know on the back end of that it's like, all right, look, you're going to come to this place and I'm going to explain to you why I love it with all my heart more than you, and you're going to look at it and say, this place is a goddamn shithole.
Honestly, as long as you stay in the house that we stayed in when we were in Pittsburgh, it'll be fine.
It'd be like me taking you to Benidorm. That's just like what the UK people do.
I'm sure there's 4 people in the chat who know what you're talking about, but I don't.
I mean, I'm sure you
pictures.
can relate. It's a down bad place, and people like it.
There's nothing down bad about Pittsburgh.
Nothing.
It is on the up and up.
I mean, they have scooters.
Do you like science?
No.
We got science covered. Do you like art?
We got art.
Do you know? What do you know about the Warhol Museum?
Yeah.
Huh?
I know about Andy Warhol and his Campbell soup.
Okay.
One of the most
born and fucking raised, baby.
One of the best healthcare systems in the country.
That's right, UPMC. What do you know about falling water?
Right, but what does this have to
Frank
do
Lloyd Wright.
Frank Lloyd Wright.
What does this have to do with your significant other?
Culture, bro.
I'm telling you about the culture of Pittsburgh. We were built. See, people think that we were just a steel city, and we were.
No, absolutely not.
We were.
No.
Okay,
No,
we were
we're
a
not
coal
doing
mining. We were a coal mining steel city, but Andrew Carnegie saw something in this little gem. Okay.
But these people aren't you.
I can't take it.
Okay, look, he came in and he said, "These are my people. These are the people who immigrated from Europe to New York City, and they came here at this little truck stop along the way to try to make a better life."
They were jagoffs, now they're well off.
Yeah, at the confluence of the 3 rivers at the point. They said, "Hey, this is our city, goddammit. We are black and gold, and we're gonna have the best goddamn sports teams in all
Let's
the
just
nation.
make this an entire Pittsburgh podcast.
You know
Sorry,
what
Henry.
the issue is though is that
Everything.
none of you you Yinzers, you did not choose this lifestyle. You know,
Nobody would
The lifestyle
choose to
chose
live
us.
in
exactly.
Yeah,
Your parents
we're
had
okay
a
with
child
that.
in Pittsburgh, and welcome to
Do
your
you
life.
understand? That's why we're so goddamn proud. Do you know how resilient our parents had to be to stick it out and raise children in such a goddamn beautiful place?
You were 6, man.
They could have went elsewhere.
You don't know anything.
Landon, they had hopes. They had dreams. They wanted to leave their hometown. You know what they did? They
went-
shacked up and had us instead.
Right.
I think that they.
And
does that
here
mean
you
they
are
failed?
now. Here you are now, Matt.
That's right.
Out of Pittsburgh.
Here I am now. It's
Down
truly
horrendous.
It's truly one of the most magical places on earth. You don't know what you're talking about.
Listen, I would love to have a Pittsburgh trip if it made sense.
I'm here
I'd
for
be
it. I'm going to take like a 50-person field
You're
trip.
gonna bring the fucking armada to Pittsburgh.
I'm gonna recruit like 50 people that I care about enough to show them the inner workings of Pittsburgh, and we're gonna take a goddamn field trip for like
You're
a
gonna,
week.
You're gonna you're gonna make an Instagram close friends group, and then
Yeah.
everyone in that close friends group is allowed to come.
That's right. That's absolutely right. We're all gonna hang out and stay on top of Mount
We're all
Washington.
gonna hang out together as friends.
Nova Poker said Andrew Carnegie was pretty cool for a rich old white guy.
Yeah. Hey. Some people are able to get beyond the stereotype, you know. All right, I've enjoyed this podcast. That's going to be a wrap for me. Now we're going to take over to Landon's side of the
Yeah.
coin. We're going to talk strategy.
Yes, the only time I'm actually valuable.
The funny part.
The tortoise will be
The
asleep.
funny part is this entire conversation is going to be us shooting Landon down.
Cool,
Like,
perfect.
let me tell you why theory doesn't matter, sir.
Okay, we both know that's a lie, but go off.
we do know that it's a lie, but I do think that you and I are on different sides of this coin.
Oh boy.
Uncle Phil,
Strap in.
Uncle
Uncle
Phil's
Philly.
been taken to the Twitter streets,
Yeah,
and
so-
I got to tell you, this is a long time coming.
Gotta get that engagement for his bet.
I'm excited for Mr. Phil Galfond to be on the Twitter every day, and I enjoy watching this play out because it's clear he hasn't used social media very much, and it's clear that he cares about winning the bet. So what he's doing is he's researching, and the first thing he came up with is Threads hit. Man.
Chat GPT.
Threads fucking hit. So he's out here with a bunch of threads, and he's doing what he knows best, poker. Yesterday's thread was, if you're closer than your opponent to executing optimal strategy, you're a favorite, right? Wrong. Here's a simple breakdown of why that is and what it means for you. So I'm not going to go into the rest of the thread. We can, I'll reference it. We'll touch on it point by point. But I think this is a really important conversation for Phil specifically to start, because a lot of us have kind of been having it in the background for many years. And I think it's very easy to assume ignorance or negligence when this conversation comes up from somebody who isn't Phil. Like, nobody's ever going to question Phil's knowledge of the game or knowledge of game theory, because we just understand him to be goated when it comes to the space. But for those of us who are a bit less than, who are willing to have this debate in the open, it's very easy to just say like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, right? So I often get labeled as the exploit guy. Even in this thread, I replied something along the lines of like, it's nice to see you having these convos on Twitter. And he goes, I know you're always up for a good conversation on exploits. And it's like, yeah, I get it. Like, that became my lane because I came from the live arena, and there was a lot of things about game theory that I understood both from my past in being a computer scientist major, I guess, all the way through learning this game kinesthetically, that didn't necessarily add up. And when you're going through the learning curve and the growing pains of trying to marry the, let's call it the psychological world with the theoretical mathematical based world, you just lack terminology for a lot of things, and it's easy to misspeak. So a lot of conversations had along the way will have a ton of fucking noise to them. And it takes somebody like Galfond to oversee it and kind of strip it down to the signal, right? And I think what he really nails here is that the signal is this statement that has been sold to the community for the better part of a decade, is that nobody can do better than GTO. And GTO is a way of life. I mean, you know, Poppy actually fucking branded it at one point. No one even knows if it was ironic or not. It was just a thing.
Had to be.
But it became this notion of I'm going to play as close to optimal as possible, and there's literally nothing you can do to combat against that. And the problem with this, slight aside, I remember when I was living with Dan O'Brien, Uncle Dan, he started reading Jonda's book on game theory. Yeah, applications of no limit hold'em. And there's a point about indifference. You know, Dan's a really smart guy. He has a finance background. So like the notion of indifference was very easy for him to understand mathematically. And when he picked up on that, he, you know, tried to conceptually understand how that applied to poker. And we were playing a home game together, and he bet the river, and I was in a tough spot with the bluff catcher. I'm just like, oh, I'm not. You got it this time? And he just looks at me and he goes, I'm indifferent as fuck. And at that point,
you cleaned that up, didn't you, a little bit?
I don't think so.
I remember him saying something different.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, I can't wait for you to tell me off air. Tortoise isn't going to get himself canceled. He's not saying it now. But I remember whenever he said that, my immediate response was, no, you're not. You have a hand, and your hand wants me to do one thing or the other. Like, you are not indifferent. And to be fair, we were both kind of correct, right? In Theoryland, or according to his overall range, if he played this spot correctly, or as close to the theory optimal as possible, he truly is indifferent, right? He doesn't care what I do because he's making his EV either way, right? But, you know, he had read the chapter that day. So the likelihood that he was truly indifferent in this spot, probably very far off from equilibrium. So in that regard, I'm kind of right? Like, he's probably just off on his frequencies or off on his sizings or has too many candidates or too few candidates or whatever. So there isn't truly an indifference. And this statement that Phil makes of, if you're closer than your opponent to executing optimal strategy, you're a favorite, right? Wrong. That's really what it distills down to. Is we weren't able to really put language to it before, but we've kind of finally gotten to a point where we have a really good overview now of how theory functions. And we recognize where the most important points of failure come from. And it's the parameters, right? So every single time that we have a hand history fight, and when I say we, I mean me and Landon,
hello.
It almost always ends up at a place where we're both correct to the parameters that we're each speaking to, right? And the issue becomes that there's no such thing as general parameters. There's baseline of what we have vision over, right? So we've developed ranges to a certain degree of confidence for 6 max, 8 max, 9 max, high rake, medium rake, low rake, no rake, right? The level of accuracy to those ranges, we're a little bit uncertain, but we can say like that's the baseline we're operating off of. Now, what's important to understand is that even when we call something a baseline, that's still variable in nature because we're still converging on zero and we don't truly know what equilibrium looks like. So baseline actually just references to what we understand to be the default as is, right? As our knowledge allows for now. So what happens then at the first point of the game tree when the parameters have shifted? You can do better as an opponent or as the hero by shifting off of baseline strategy, because the whole strategy broke the second that your opponent is actually V-pipping 20% in a spot where you have them locked for 12.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, definitely no counterpoints there. And you can make the argument that in some spots that are range bets, so to speak, you go, oh, this is a range bet for these reasons, and having the background as to why they are, not just knowing that, oh, machine range bets, it's a range bet. But then taking into future decisions as, okay, what if I don't bet? And now my opponent has to play a line where it doesn't exist in the machine, right? Because when the machine starts, even putting in ranges to begin with, it's a toy game. Like, you're just playing a toy game under the parameters that we accept as the collective to be true, because it allows you to inherently be, like what Dan was talking about, like indifferent in every decision that you make. But when you're playing practically, it's hard to quantify and understand where the edge is coming from unless you've actually ran those spots. Because I was having a conversation with Melissa the other day on the couch when I was talking about node locking certain responses pre-flop, where if people aren't raising enough, you can now open like 30% from the low jack, where you're just finding king 3 suited and opening. Where if someone that only has studied the theoretical side and knows that king 3 suited doesn't open from low jack and sees this hand, it's very easy to bucket the person that opened it into a wreck or into a losing player. Where in reality, it's just a bunch of ego from that side of, I know this toy game better than you, that means I'm better than you at poker, which isn't necessarily true. And you see this all the time when it comes to win rates or people winning and going deep in large field events, where it's like, how are they doing what they're doing? Because some people are just straight by the book, like super theoretically studied and knowledgeable and do what theory says and live the life that way, like live by the sword, die by the sword. But
Slave
then,
to the sim.
yeah, hashtag slave to the sim, always jam the ace 5. But then there's other people that have never really looked at theory in their lives and just continually get W's. So who's to say one is quote unquote more right than the other? Because for me, I like having the background and the baseline of what theory looks like, and then knowing the proper adjustments in certain spots to then make my informed decisions, because otherwise you're playing a guessing game. And most of the community that have been around pre-solver era had to play a guessing game by default. Like you were talking to me, Matt, when you would do hand histories with your friends, that it was always just like a screaming match as to who's right, who's wrong when it comes to, is this person raising enough? Is this person bluffing enough? Can I even 3-bet this hand in the first place? Where now we kind of have the toy game as the answer, and we call it the textbook, so to speak. And when you look at the textbook and say, okay, I know what the textbook does, here's how I'm going to make more money than the textbook, then you then put those node locks or ideas into the machine and see if that's equivalent with the way that you're thinking. And kind of that's how the most of the EV is gained nowadays.
Yeah, I have a lot of follow-ups, but I'll let you guys.
Well, I was just curious to hear, like, do you think that's been one of your biggest struggles in the live arena when it comes to like adjusting from what the toy says?
I think for me personally, as of this year was a pretty transformative year when it comes to the way that I saw poker and
We get
strategy.
it, bro. You grew a jawline.
No,
We
man, I'm not
understand.
talking about the fucking jawline. I'm talking. Matt and I had a conversation once in my room when I ran a sim.
But you're in your room together.
Yeah, because I was trying to explain a point before I had remote PC. I ran a sim, and then he basically called me extremely egotistical and arrogant about the machine, and then it sat with me for probably like a month before I was like, holy shit, he's right. And then from there, I was like, I guess there is more to the game than just the machine.
Right.
And then you kind of see it yourself too. Like I played a hand in the Mystery Bounty where I knew in theory my hand was indifferent as fuck, as Dan O'Brien would say. And in practice, you're just dead. Like it was a massive fucking torch to call. Like queen 3-3 single raise pot, low jack versus big blind. Check, 1 big blind, raise to 2 big blinds, call, turn king, bet 40%. And even then, it's like the guy has a 3. I don't know how you have a king, but you do,
Might
right?
have multiple.
Call, river 9 of clubs, backdoor flush gets in, he jams. I'm like, oh, the suits don't really matter because no one's really finding the 4-5 of clubs, no one's finding the ace of clubs deuce, right? So I'm like, oh, this is probably indifferent in theory. But I'm over it, and I know this is 0 EV in the machine. I call, and I just see king queen. And I was like, oh, this guy probably just has king queen. And they always have king queen.
Yes.
So when you start calling with the queen jack when it's indifferent, in theory, you're actually just losing probably hundreds of big blinds per 100.
Yeah.
Calling in a spot that you don't win. And you can take that and say, oh, I knew the machine was 0 EV. I didn't lose any EV. But then you play the grow up game and there's no fucking bluffs here and you're actually losing.
Fuck your stupid machine.
Because the machine is perfectly balanced where most people just aren't in certain spots.
It's like having that live experience is probably something that, I mean, I haven't spoken much poker with you, but you used to deal poker and like having that experience of just body language, timing tells, sizing patterns, like all that kind of recognition stuff. And I remember a hand from the World Series where the guy folded like ace queen on a king queen 3 board, and like the guy just has kings. I don't know if you guys
lefty, yeah,
lefty, and like I didn't know him. I still don't know him personally, but like people were saying how many years of live poker this guy's been playing. Yeah. And if you put that hand into the computer, it's gonna be like, you're a fucking idiot for finding the fold here. But he's just like, no, like I'm aware of this spot. Like I know that the computer says cool, but I've also played thousands of hours of live poker, and I'm confident enough in my adjustments.
A lot of people just don't bluff, man.
Yeah,
that's it, man. Like,
when there's money on the line and we're at the river, they're just not bluffing.
Like the computer is playing against the computer, right?
Look at this
you're
hand,
playing
man.
against human beings, so.
Just like folds ace queen. Like,
There's another hand similar to this. It was from PCA 2019.
I know exactly what hand you're talking about.
It was, I keep wanting to say Faraz, but it wasn't.
It was Anastas and Polychronopoulos. Yeah.
Mr. Polychronopoulos himself, where he had, I believe, aces full versus ace queen on ace queen queen.
Right.
Yeah, river ace.
And the woman folded the ace queen facing the river jam.
Yeah.
And the reason I bring that up is not because of it being a counterfactual to what the machine would do. Obviously, this is just a tremendous overfold in theory. But I bring it up because she doesn't necessarily know that. I don't know what her background is. Maybe she's like insanely fucking studied and grinding PO 24/7. But from my vantage point, having like watched the hand play out and hearing her speak and watching her play as she goes through the tournament, I would have assumed she was a rather newer player who won a seat or maybe satellited in. With that knowledge, what you have to understand is she doesn't have the skill or knowledge that the machine has. And to some degree, none of us do, right? That's kind of the overarching point of all this, is that, okay, here's an extreme example where this woman may have never looked at a sim and has no idea how much EV is being torched by folding literally the best hand you'll ever have on the river there.
Yeah.
And if you like take it to the furthest extreme of somebody like, a young up and coming Bowie effect who's just a fucking crusher, right? And knows a lot about most of the sims. Now he can never allow himself to fold the ace queen because he just knows too much, right? But the fact of the matter is, the gap between what the computer knows and what somebody like Bowie effect knows is still just as wide as the gap between this woman and Bowie effect, right? And when that exists, when those blind spots are so ever present, we have this whole other fucking world available to us that this woman is 1,000,000 times more in tune to than a Bowie effect, right? Mm-hmm. So what she lacks in technical knowledge of the game, she gains in experiential understanding of people.
Right.
And Athenos is no fucking slouch. He's an excellent player, but he just doesn't have a bluff there.
Anastasios.
Or Anastasios, right. Yeah. My bad.
I got you.
So much Greek in this name.
Anastasios Polychronopoulos.
Yeah. So it's like, she's able to tap into, however woo-woo you want to get with this, call it an energy field, call it like picking up on a vibe, or
crystals.
Just even seeing that the actual flow of the hand is so foreign that it doesn't make any logical sense. She folds literally the second nuts.
Yeah.
And correctly so. So it's like, there's something to both of these worlds. And I think it comes from just being humble enough to acknowledge that no matter how fucking good we get, the gap between us and what the machine can do is so goddamn vast that we can no longer ignore the human side of things.
Yeah, I had this thought experiment with the boys, if you will, where we say, if we put Pile Solver in this tournament right now, do we think that Pile Solver and call it simple preflop, call it Munker, right? So you have all of the tools wrapped into one machine.
Right.
Do we think the machine has the highest ROI in the tournament? And we all collectively say no. No. Yeah. Right? Because there's some spots where you need to node lock the machine to not call.
Right.
It's like there are some spots where you fold range. In live poker, right? And we kind of call that I kind of call it the good hand, bad hand type of way of playing poker, where you see a line, you see the way things are going and the bets that are put in, and then you just think to yourself before even looking at theory, like, do they have a good hand or a bad hand? And you start there, right? And then using that as a guide, you then start making more decisions when it comes to your bluff catches, when it comes to the decisions you want to make in a hand. Because sometimes like the machine will do something based off of blockers and card removal, Where in practice, sometimes people just tell you what they have.
Yeah, I mean that was the
point, yeah.
that was the onus of Phil's thread. He basically said like, what happens if Joe bets $10 into a $10 pot 100 times against Miss Optimal versus against Miss Zero Calls. And the whole point is if Joe's bluff frequency is too low, he gave him 20% here for betting pot where it needs to be 33%. If it's too low, what ultimately ends up happening is Miss Optimal loses $200 and Mr. Fold loses $0. So massively overfolding when somebody is under bluffing just immediately neutralizes win rate, right? So you can naturally just do better in a spot where your opponent is positioned into having it. And I think what that does a great job of illuminating is how poorly we actually study this game. And when I say we, I mean collectively as a community. Obviously, the people who are elite for a reason. They figured this stuff out on their own, this conversation that we're having amongst peers, and they understand how to do this for themselves. They may not put it out to the community. They may not translate it very well into teachable material for others coming up, but the elite get it either unconsciously or consciously. They're extremely competent at this. If I told you that every sim you've ever ran in your entire life was node locked, would you believe me?
Yeah,
Okay.
I would.
Can you tell me how?
In the sense of like what we're deciding is real. Like we're like basically every sim is a toy game, right? Every sim and everything that I look at.
So to put this in more simple terms, because I think there are a lot of people who aren't familiar with how sims are created or even what node locking means. But effectively, what ends up happening is when we use these EV calculators, call them simulators, PO solver, whatever the case may be, we're putting in a set of inputs and it's spitting out a set of outputs and it's trying to converge upon zero. So it's trying to make it so that everybody's decisions are indifferent across the board. It's a zero-sum game, yada, 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 right? But the fact of the matter is, as Landon pointed out, it's a toy game. It's an abstraction of a spot. So if you were actually able to visualize the game tree, and we'll never be able to do this because it has so many decision points, more decisions than atoms in the universe. We say that so flippantly as though we even know what a fucking atom looks like, but you can't even see with the naked eye, right?
Essentially infinite.
Right. So it's effectively infinite. If you're able to actually see this infinite game spawn out before you, when we run a sim, we are literally taking one grain of sand and calling it a complete strategy.
Yeah, it's truncated by a lot.
Right. So like we've now reduced this infinite game tree down to like a grain of sand, and calling that like, the completed vision over the game. And this is what people truly believe. Like game theory, GTO has allowed us to have full vision over the game. It's like you literally understand a speck of it. So the reason why I'm saying that every single sim you've ever ran is node locked is because you entered the preflop ranges. You
put the parameters in yourself.
Correct. You just even
under just assumptions. Just
right. Even if we
yeah.
limited the game, so like you can run a limit hold'em solve, right? It's still node locked because you still gave it ranges, right? There's just no way to run
a little closer, but not nowhere near where it needs to be.
There's just no way to run sims where we can allow the ranges to be fully open throughout the whole process and converge upon hands that make the most amount of sense, almost like retroactively, right?
Because you're even node locking, at least for myself and good players as well. You node lock your own strategy sometimes too, because you look at a preflop range, and then you have to be honest with yourself and be like, "Am I opening this pure? Am I calling this 3-bet pure? Am I playing these combos in this way?" Right? And then you start making little deviations and assumptions because you're trying to play the strategy that you are going to play yourself. That's more important than like having the idea of what the machine does by a default. Like if I was only going to run one sim for a spot, I would use it for the way that I play the spot versus a theoretically based range. But I run two sims always as to what perfect theory looks like, so I can get better and improve myself, and then run my strategy. Because now having the baseline is important versus the elite, right? But having my own strategy is also extremely important as to my clairvoyance of the game.
But it's very important to understand that your baseline is still unique to you.
Right. It's my baseline. It's not the baseline of everyone.
No. I'm not even talking about unique to your strategy. I'm saying it's unique to the way that you ran what you're calling a perfect sim.
Right. It's not perfect because you're now limiting bet sizes. You're adding different things. You can't have the AI just play the spot for you.
Right.
Does that
Well,
make sense?
I guess the whole point I'm trying to make, and the one that I think Phil was obviously trying to make at the onset of this thread, is that across the board, we can't even arrive at a simple agreement upon baseline, right? Like we cannot, as a community, we are no closer to knowing what the perfect equilibrium for button versus big blind spot looks like, right? We're converging. We're constantly getting closer, but my range that I input will look different than Brian's range, which will look different than Landon's range. And, maybe there'll be some uniformity across the way if a big chunk of us all buy that range from Range Converter and just like call that the Bible of ranges now and utilize it as such. But that doesn't mean that it's right. It just means that it is, right? It just means that it's used. And the second I think that we get lazy enough to, because here's the thing, in order to actually study this game deeply, you want to be able to start to default some things. You want to say, okay, these are the 5 sizes that I use, and these are the ranges that I have fixed by position. I don't want to have to keep thinking about that and adjusting that and tweaking that. Otherwise, I'm never going to get to the bottom of this game. The reality is you should actually work from the back, like work from the end back. I'm never going to get to the bottom of this game. I know that. So I actually don't need to develop these rigid strategies. The opposite should be true. The highest win rate available to anybody will be the person who runs as wide open as humanly possible.
I love that.
Right?
I love that. That's very, very smart.
I don't want to default these ranges, and I don't want to default these bet sizes. What if I'm completely missing out on the fact that I can 10x pot?
Yeah.
Right?
I really like that. I think that's what makes Galfond just like the GOAT as well. If you had to guess, do you think what Galfond does is teachable?
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
That's very interesting.
I don't think it's easily. Well, I say that because maybe I'm hopeful or aspiring for it to be teachable, because I see a lot of my approach in his approach.
You don't think that's just natural talent on his part?
I think it's a high aptitude for this type of stuff, and that makes it difficult to transpose onto somebody else. But somebody else with that aptitude, I think he could teach them very easily.
Yeah. I mean, I don't see how he just keeps disposing of these elite players the way that he does. Like he just must trust his gut so fucking much and his read on these situations, man.
In my opinion, and you know what? Like he's been kind of open about this. Like I personally went through it too. The onset of COVID and like the introduction of Landon being a mainstay in my life really pushed me into this corner of imposter syndrome.
Right.
Where it's just like, man, everything that I thought I was really fucking great at, I'm being told otherwise.
Right, of course, yeah.
And like it's all being challenged. And the thing is like it's so great to be challenged. Iron sharpens iron, right? But when it catches you off guard, because it's something that you've defaulted as being an edge, it's something that you've trusted for the duration of your career, and it's something you weren't prepared to have challenged at this point, it fucking catches you off guard, right? It's like taking a club to the back of the head and you're just like, what the hell's going on? And I think Galfond went through that a little bit with
Veni
Vidi, yeah. Where he became a slave to the solve because he's like, if I'm going to put in mass volume against a guy who's doing this day in and day out, I need to out Veni Vidi him, right? And then somewhere along the line, he was just down so fucking much. He said,
fuck it, we ball.
Yeah, like,
let's go back
you know
to
what?
the basics.
Like, I'm Phil fucking Galfond.
Yeah.
Like, I'm still good at this game. Why am I playing his game?
Yeah.
Let's go into the dark corners and crevices of this fucking game tree that this kid's never even thought of.
I think for at least myself, and I've gone through this, like being on the opposite side of living with you, is when you have a strategy that works and allows you to preserve your ego, right? Like from sim work, I've had a win rate from playing online since I started playing poker, and it only got better with more sims and more knowledge. And when you have that as your foundation, it's easy to use that as your crutch and like pillar of arguments when it comes to hand histories. So it's like, okay, I've learned through this with a win rate of X, and this is how I see the game. But then when you start to realize maybe there's a better way that is intertwined with your own, you don't have that perspective until somebody gives that to you, because you have what you think is the Bible and the be all end all based off of where I got to then.
Right.
Because having all of that success prior, why would you then bite the hand that feeds you? You know? But then once someone tells you, hey, maybe you can win more if you think about it this way. And it takes a lot of screaming matches sometimes and shouting matches.
It's
And-
being open to new perspectives, right? It's like the beginner's mindset approach to life. And if you apply that to poker, I can see things that Matt talks about that I'm so confident that if you implemented, would help you massively. And the same vice versa. Like there's just so much that you can both learn from each other.
Yeah, because my win rate when I first started playing online or whatever was like 3 bigs per 100, playing 200 no limit. And then as I got better using solves, this, that, whatever, ended up getting to like 7.
Right.
And then after having conversations and screaming matches with Matt, having like other environmental conversations and like really sharp players like Nick, Chewy, Kevin, you know, like being really fortunate in that way. Like, oh, maybe there's more to the way that the game works. And then I've had a double-digit win rate at 2K and L over 60K hands, where I don't think I have that win rate with only the machine-based approach. And it's just a very interesting and intricate way to learn. And it's not like it's capped there, because there's still so many mistakes and spots where maybe I'm defaulting the wrong way, where I'm like, oh, well, theory says this, and I'm not sure, but have a different personal feeling in one way or the other, where it's still worth something.
Yeah, I think the last thing I want to touch on in this subject, and then you guys can close it out, is the way that I see progression in this game and acquiring knowledge is kind of like an hourglass. When you first step foot into the arena and you start to learn the rules, what beats what, and gain what you feel is some level of an aptitude for the game, it's wide open, right? Like there's nothing clouding your vision. It's just a matter of like, which of these infinite paths in front of me do I want to take? And it's kind of the fire hose approach, where you just have so much information coming at you, whether it's kinesthetically or through peers or through study material or whatever. You're just like taking a fire hose to the face of as much of it as you can possibly handle, and whatever absorbs, and that will help dictate which of these paths you start to narrow in on, right? As you progress and you develop the mechanics, you develop the bankroll management, you develop all the intangibles and things of that nature, you start to funnel yourself into this tightly little position or niche arena that exists within the scope of poker, right? And within that little niche area that's unique to you, you have your win rate, you have your specialty, you have your secondary game that you feel comfortable playing, you have all of the lifestyle things that come with being a professional, and you have some level of both clarity, I think, and security in this position. And what you believe is happening is not the hourglass, but rather more of a globe-like approach, where all of that wide open space that you've navigated is now beneath you, and you're touching the ceiling, right? Like you've just peaked. And every one of us has gotten to this point in our career where we feel like, I'm accomplished, I've made it, now it's just about collecting dollars, right? I've learned what I need to learn, I've progressed the way that I need to progress, I will always be profitable in this game moving forward. Sure, I'll keep adding tools to my tool belt and improving upon my arsenal by just staying sharp and listening to those around me, but I'm as close to the top of whatever my ceiling is that I will be. And for many people, that's good enough, right? So when it comes to the actual training sphere, or being an educator or being a student, it's pretty important that you see this hierarchy that way, right? People start to teach when they reach that level of, call it the top of the globe, or, you know, the middle of the hourglass. And the people who are learning are the ones who are getting fire hosed, that want to drill down on a specific path. They're saying, show me your path. I don't care about the infinite other ones that I could take. I trust you as an educator, like, lead me down your path.
Right, you're influencing their path.
Yes, and for some that's great, for others, like, it's a disaster. The true reality, and what I think like is reflective of Galfond, is that it's not a globe, it's an hourglass. And if you work really fucking hard and you challenge yourself intrinsically and you question everything to your core that's gotten you to the point that you've gotten to, as well as all the math involved that the community so flippantly has defaulted to obvious or defaulted or whatever, GTO as we call it. If you challenge all of that and you're willing with maybe a small collection of peers to say like, you know what, I am willing to say that I have no answers and a bunch of fucking questions, and I'm going to hypothesize my way higher in this game. What ends up happening is you start to sneak your way through that little bit of the hourglass and come out on the other side and see that it's vast again, right? It's just limitless. And now you're seeing that with a totally different perspective than when you first entered the hourglass, and it was all boundless in front of you, but you were lost and confused and didn't know which path to take. Now you don't need a path any longer. You're established, right? And all you really care about is curiosity and fulfilling the mind. And at that point, you become a truly good educator. And it's why Phil has established the way that he has in this industry. It's why Run It Once has always been the premier training site, and why he's so surrounded by such greatness and talent whenever it comes to both players, teachers, peers, friends. Like, look at the people that he's surrounded by. They all have that infinite mindset, right? And that truly is kind of what the beauty of poker is. It's so flawless in that way.
Yeah.
Shout out Uncle Phil.
Yeah, poker's just one of those games where you're never going to be perfect, so to speak. And that's kind of what makes poker perfect as is. All of the best players are extremely inquisitive by nature. And even though it seems like they have everything figured out and looks like they have all the answers and all the sizes and all the check raising strats, after every hand or every literally almost every hand, there's always that back of their mind of, is this right? Did I do the right things? Did I see this spot the way that I'm supposed to see it with my range, not just my hand? Because sometimes you have very easy decisions on some boards where it's like, oh, I have bottom set. I'm just going to check raise, get all the money in as fast as I can. But what about when you have the fringe hands? How much do you think about check raising, check calling, floating, leading turns on certain ones? All of these other things are just added into the game as a whole because the game is so infinite that you can never have the perfect answer, and every situation is different. So always being inquisitive and always thinking about how you can get better and spots that you maybe think that you know very well is kind of the key to improvement as a whole and being able to teach in the first place. Because you can have your perspective that's gotten you to where you are, but it's not going to be where you want to end up when you're truly striving for greatness.
I think a lot of people fall into the trap of just like putting things into a standard hand bucket as well. That makes sense. Like they'll either be results oriented and be like, okay, I won the pot. Okay, I played it perfectly, or I lost the hand. I'll look at it later. But there's so many like standard hand spots like button v big blind or whatever it is that just get it overlooked. And as you mentioned, if you just take a bit of time to take a step back and review a lot of those spots, you end up realizing that you're making a shit ton of mistakes and you're leaving a lot of EV behind as well. And you can just plug a lot of that stuff by putting in a bit of hard work for sure.
Yeah.
I think the tone of the community reflects that too. Like there was this like wave of GTO being the answer, the end all be all, whatever you want to frame it as, the marketing aspect of it. And there was like this deep freeze for like a 12 to 18 month period of time where everybody was just certain that the disparity between the people learning this new strategy and those who weren't was insurmountable. And then I think like we came full circle. It's almost like the bell curve meme of the person saying like, they don't bluff enough, so I fold. And then getting to like the wizard on top saying like, well, the minimum defense frequency here is 33% and I have like dead center of my range and this hand's supposed to call at a 12% frequency and I have the king of spades in this situation, so I call. Oh, they don't bluff enough, I fold. And then on the other side of it, just like the wizard saying, they don't bluff enough, so I fold.
Yeah, of course.
It really does feel like, and that's always going to be the case. We're always just peeling back the onion, right? Like we're never going to get to the actual core. We're just constantly going to be asking more educated questions and trying to better understand the unlimited nature of all of this. But like for me personally, like it's done so much to revigor or reignite my curiosity when it comes to the boundlessness of it all, right? Like for a while, I just chalked it up to like, well, deep stack no limit is going to die because according to the solvers or tools, like whatever little bit we can actually see, they just want to kind of like check down to the river and then be all in with like a polarized range. Like that's the way, the equity threshold is so fucking high to invest money whenever you're at an SPR of like 300.
Yeah, boards become scary.
Every board is scary, right? Every board contains sets. If I don't have a set, no bet. You know, it's kind of that way. It's like you just see like a ton of like really strong hands, over pairs, top pairs, like just playing a lot of defense, right? And the game gets very defensive in nature. And when GTO first was packaged in 2015-16, this is what we saw. We saw a lot of overcorrection to protect ranges, specifically check back ranges. There was a lot of passive play. We kind of called it a defensive strategy, right? And now that we've unlocked a lot more, we see it going extremely offensive, right? Like a lot of overbetting taking place. We understand like where we can challenge calling thresholds whenever we're able to bet like 5x pot, 8x pot, whatever. And now I realize like, well, we don't need the solver necessarily for 1,000 big blind poker.
Just need to mash pot.
Or at least wait for our opponents to mash pot, right? Because like what ends up happening in human land is you could take the most studied people, some guys that I would not want to sit 100 big blinds effective in a live cash arena. I would happily sit 1,000 big blinds effective.
I know exactly the types of people you're talking about.
Yeah.
I know exactly.
They're just fucking brutal.
Yeah.
At how crisp they are pre-flop, at how great they are at knowing when to polarize post when they're 100 big blinds effective. Right? They just play 3 and 4 bet pots perfectly, or, you know, perfectly in accordance to what I can defend against. But when you 10x that SPR, they're on an island because you can't just run the same tips and tricks. You know, you have to have the all-in button available at all times, even whenever the SPR is 100.
There's so many streamers. I don't want to put anyone on blast, but there are a lot of streamers that I know that will sit out the moment they have 120 bigs. Yeah. And they'll just rat hole.
Put them on blast. Put them on blast. Put them on blast. Put them on blast.
This used to be a thing, and I'd just be like, what are they doing? But then I'd find myself getting put in the blender when I'm like 300 bigs effective playing against like Elis or something. I'm like, oh, okay. Elis is just like floating way wider than he normally would against me when I'm 100 bigs effective against him, because he knows he can just bin me on most runouts, over turn or river. And I'm completely lost on the river when there's 100 bigs in there, and I still have like 250 bigs.
And that's why I say like the guys who are like very technically sound at 100 big blinds but aren't really grounded in theory. And what I mean by that is that they are
They're textbook players.
Yeah, they're very good at execution, but they're not quote unquote theorists.
Yeah.
Right. Somebody showed them all the nodes, and they're great at being able to lock that in. Right. Why there's so much win rate available whenever you make them sit 1,000 blinds effective is because it doesn't translate 1-to-1. Right. Like the hands that are polarizing in a 3-bet pot at 100 blinds effective are like 1 pair type hands.
Right.
The hands that are polarizing in a 3-bet pot at 1,000 blinds effective are like hands drawing to the nuts, and only hands drawing to the nuts. You know what I mean? Like there are spots where like sometimes you even have to delay with some of your set holdings, similar to PLO.
Yeah.
Because the probability of being set under set when all the money actually goes in is so much higher because the thresholds change so drastically. You know, people are supposed to tiptoe around these big pots.
Yeah.
But the beauty of live poker is they fucking don't.
Oh, dude, when you see Terry 2-pair just getting 500 bigs in with bottom set on like a Queen 8 deuce rainbow board, you're just like, okay, strap in, boys.
Right.
We're going to win a lot of money today.
Right.
Like, let's go.
Right. And it's very easy to say like, oh, obviously that's a fucking mistake. But like, go sit in a game with Eric Persons and tell me you're not putting in every fucking chip in front of you with bottom set.
Right.
Of course you are.
Yeah.
And like the times that you lose a 2,000 big blind pot because he had top set, you just shrug it off and say like reload.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, like this man just jammed Jack 4 high on fucking 10-9 deuce.
Yeah.
In a 4-bet pot or 3-bet pot, like for thousands of, you know, like what are you going to do? It's all relative to your strategy versus the counter, not your strategy in isolation, right? You don't get to just dismiss what's happening around you. That counter strategy is so critical.
I mean, you can, but you'll lose money doing that.
Yeah, you'll miss out on a lot of win rate.
Yeah, or you'll just become a spot. Like literally, if you start paying off in some spots where there's no win or EV to be had, you can be super studied, but if you're not able to adjust, you could just become dead.
Yeah, I think the way that it actually happens at depth is what Henry described, where your c-bet frequency is closer to shallow stacks than deep, and you just get absolutely caged because this person is just floating range because fuck you. We're still going to get to
that's literally it. It's just the fuck you.
Like, we're still going to get to the turn at 20 SPR. What are you going to do to me? Right? And now, like, even when you have good hands and you want to polarize, it's like, okay, so I'm out of position. SPR is 20. 2E here is 5x pods. It's like, how do we proceed? You know what I mean? So it's not clean and it's not as well defined as the strategies that have kind of evolved over the past few years. And to me, that's exciting. Like, that's the way the game will always trend. I jokingly said this on stream in 2017, and Colpoy still like fucking brings it up at random all the time. But I basically said, like, if the game persists the way that it is with all the tools available, we'll just all end up playing like 5-10 no limit with 10,000 big blinds in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the biggest game in the casino could conceivably be like 5-10, but everybody's buying it for 100K.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's not going to happen because blinds and antes matter, but it conceivably could. Like, you could very easily see a 5-10 1K ante game and have that be the case.
It is pretty funny because it seems as if the inverse sort of happened to you when you're playing your high stakes game, and then it kind of turned into a tournament. Like, you just had 300 bigs, but then straddles went on, and now you have 20 bigs, and you're just playing infinite dollar pots for not many big blinds, just like spinning the wheel and praying that you're the one that gets chosen.
Pick me.
And
Guilty.
you weren't chosen.
We've all been there.
Pick me,
If you
please.
play live poker, that shit happens.
Please pick
And
me.
it's just like your ego will not let you stand up from that game.
Well, that's also because it's always the best fucking spot.
Of course. It's just like, there's no fucking way I've come to play this game, and now that they're making it bigger, I'm not leaving.
It's not your ego, it's your brain. It's just like, man, this game's good.
Yeah, any game where it's 10x the stakes that you sat down for, it's probably for a reason.
Yeah,
there's a just cause behind it.
There's like it's not directly proportional, right? When it comes to game being good and win rate being had, as well as understanding how much of the time you actually win, right? Because it can be the best game in the room and your win rate is higher because the stakes got bigger, but you might lose way more because the variance just got jacked up. And now you have to just pray that you're the one that holds or gets the good hand in the good spot.
I mean, a lot of people, I think, that are in this spot kind of just understand that, though. Because it's just like, it turns into a tournament then.
They do understand it, but it's tough whenever you start to play so big that, like, you don't have reloads.
Yeah, and it hurts. Yeah,
Yeah.
of course. But, like, yeah, it's
Well,
just...
because now what ends up happening in some spots is it might even just be in like a real life sense an irresponsible spot to play if you can't just sell out to make a maximum reloads.
Well, yeah, it's
right?
probably always going to be irresponsible.
It's
like,
fun
for
being
most
on the
people.
other side of it, though. Like, when you're a high stakes player and you go sit in a 5-10 game and you turn it into 5-10, 20, 40, 80, knowing that you have 50,000 in your pocket and, like, can just keep covering the table over and over and over and over again until, like, a bunch of 5-10 players who are like playing up because the spots in here wailing around.
Right.
You're just like, oh, I can just outlast these guys.
Right,
Yeah.
that's when you become the alpha.
Yeah.
Been there
Yeah.
in the 1-2 PLO streets.
Sick flex, bro.
Yeah. Love that.
Alpha PLO Lord Henry.
That's right.
Kill the game.
I wish.
Kill the game, Bane. All right. So to wrap this conversation, basically what I said in short was that nobody plays theory. Nobody plays optimally. And everybody is playing exploitatively.
Also, the biggest game in the room will be 5-10.
No,
1,000
that's
big blinds deep.
fuck you and fuck Cole, please. Withered. Get the fuck off of Twitter, man. Get a life. Christ. No. So I'm saying this half jokingly, but the reality is that we have a very poor definition of what theory optimal actually means and what exploitative actually means. They're very much one and the same as far as we understand them. And I think that's kind of the big takeaway here is that study according to your questions rather than according to whatever has been standardized. Because whatever's standardized today will be fucking trash tomorrow. And if you don't believe me, go back and look at some of the game theory videos from 2016. See what their inputs were for ranges from under the gun 1. That 5% probably isn't coming through all that often any longer. We see a little bit more V-pipping going on. On that note, we have a few announcements. We have one more seat available for the February Academy. Came open. We had a cancellation. So that's February 2nd?
February 2nd to the 5th.
Poker Out Loud Academy. 4 days of study here in Vegas. We will spend 2 days on strategy construction, teaching you a lot of the concepts that we spoke about here today. And 2 days of full gameplay, 8-hour sessions where you will be put under the microscope to speak your strategy out loud in real time when making decisions. You'll have that study tape to utilize indefinitely moving forward, and the coaches will all provide commentary to each hand that's played. So you'll have a bit of a reference point for things you do well and things you need to further look into.
The most value from that is the opportunity to come and put Landon Tice in the absolute blender. Like, if you're ever going to come to the academy, obviously you're going to learn a shit ton, but just having the story to tell over the dinner table that I put Landon Tice in the bin, invaluable. You can't put a price on that, guys. Okay.
I like the in the bin, man. I like this.
I
heard it. I was like, ooh, that's good.
I was big on caging people back in like 2012.
Cage.
I taught it to Russell Thomas. That was my big contribution to his final table, was teaching him how to quote unquote cage people. We will also have new academy dates for March. We're going to finalize those. We'll have those out hopefully tomorrow, if not when we get back from Christmas break. Finally, don't forget to head to the DraftKings app. Sign up using promo code FriendsPod. When you make a $25 deposit, DraftKings will give you $50 in credits. That's code FriendsPod. Only at DraftKings Casino. Link is in the description below. Sign up today.
On that note,
You know what?
Conrad's going to carry us home.
You know what? Let me give one. I was thinking about it while you were speaking about the theory exploits. I kind of sharpened it in a sentence.
Okay.
The best players use theory to sharpen their exploits. That's where I'll go with that.
GG's Landon Tice.
Put it on a t-shirt.
Okay.
I had to stop the outro for that.
So we need 2 new t-shirts. ICM is for poor people.
That wasn't even my statement.
With the Only Friends podcast.
I will fucking wear that. I will wear that to every event.
Every live stream that I do. Anyone,
that.
Henry, what's ICM? What's ICM? ICM's for poor people. Don't worry about it. That's my commentary from now on.
Give me a graphic. I'll put it in the shop.
that's fucking great.
Let's do it.
Gotta get an emote.
That's got to be an Ivy fucking quote.
Well, thanks for rocking with us again this week. We'll be back tomorrow, I believe 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. Sorry, tomorrow at 11 a.m.
11 a.m. Secret Santa tomorrow.
Oh, we're doing a Secret Santa.
Yes.
Who do you guys think I got? What do you think I got them?
I can't wait to get my presents from all of you guys.
I'm not saying a word.
All right, well, we'll be back. We'll figure out who got who tomorrow, what presents are given. Seems like it's going to be pretty fun.
I'm probably gonna need a fucking towel.
Yo.
Thanks for rocking with us again. We'll be back tomorrow. Later.
Oh my God.